A clip from Bitesize Irish live Q&A. What is the best piece of advice you have received during your Irish language learning journey? So our next question then is from Egon in Australia, San Austral. And his question is, what is the best piece of advice you have received during your Irish language learning journey that you can or would pass on to learners? Guramagat Egon. And he says, by the way, absolutely love your passion for the language and I've learned heaps from you both. Guramila Mahagat Egon. So Aisling, what would you say to that? What's the best piece of advice?
I think, first of all, thanks very much, Egon. I think I always enjoy whenever you're on the Gleachna Cogra Mugger, you're always very eager and have very unique questions. So I love hearing from you. So thanks for submitting this question and for saying that. That's really sweet and kind. I think that's a very tough question, but the minute you said it, I said I wasn't going to overthink it and just try and remember pieces of advice that really helped me. So the first one might be a bit specific, but it's kind of to do with the genitive, so the Tishil Ginidach, and it seems to be this kind of, it's the enemy of the Irish language learner. Everyone kind of is afraid of it. And it is, the way it's kind of explained can be quite overwhelming because there's all the, the rules and the different cases and all this kind of stuff. And it can be a bit daunting. But my friend who is a native speaker said, if you can kind of figure out what sounds the best in the genitive. So once you kind of understand the rhythm of it, try not to overthink it. So for example, if the word for street is antroid, and then if you want to say the end of the street is going to be bun and antroid. And the thing that sounds most natural to me is bun na stráide, and that's what it is. Now, that might not apply to any learners out there at the moment listening. You might say, what is she talking about? But that was one thing that came to me. If you can get into the kind of rhythm of the language and how it sounds and how it should sound, sometimes you have that confidence then to guess and get it right. So try and almost internalize the language first before you get too bogged down with a lot of grammar. Secondly, then, which might be a bit more applicable, a teacher in college once said to us very kind of bluntly, you can only kind of go two directions with the language. You can either be learning it or losing it. And at first I kind of thought that was a very harsh thing to say. I was like, oh God, that's very mean, like, is he kind of trying to hint to us that we're all losing our language? But I think it kind of reframes how we view fluency, because I don't think that there is an end point to learning a language ever. I mean, I still come across words in English that I don't know, and I definitely still come across words in Irish that I don't know every single day. And sometimes I find myself getting very cross with myself and saying, oh my God, I've been learning Irish for so long. How have I not reached a point where I could just read something and not know a word? But you will never be at a point, I don't think, where you know every single word or know everything. And it's kind of nice to view it that way, because it means you're a bit easier on yourself. And fluency is kind of a never-ending journey, really. You just get more confident and comfortable with the language. You don't ever get to a point where you know everything. So I think that's helpful in any language learning journey, but specifically with Irish, maybe, where you mightn't have the same resources or the same amount of kind of speakers around you and things like that. So that would be my advice. And what about you, Siobhán?
That's it. I'd say that was great advice there, Aisling. I would say the best advice I could give that's helped me to improve my Irish is listening a ton and reading a ton. And that is, after all, how you can improve your language skills in any language, be it your native language or whatever. Listening and reading. That's how we all learned any language, really, as children. And another thing I find that's really good, and again, I don't think it applies to it doesn't matter, I think, which language you apply it to, but it's forcing yourself to find the correct phrase or word for whatever you're trying to say. So if you're speaking English, of course, you could say, instead of, this is a very simplistic, silly example, but instead of saying the drivey thing, say a care. It's this sort of thing. It's a very simplistic one, but it's the same in Irish as well. Instead of using the English term, especially for newer concepts or more complicated or scientific concepts or the like, instead of using the English term, or even a direct translation of an English phrase, try and find out what the proper Irish phrase is, what the traditional Irish phrase is, or there's probably a few different ways to say it in Irish, whatever it may be, but try and find the Irish word. And there's no shame ever, no matter your level of Irish, be you a beginner, advanced, you could have a few PhDs in Irish, it doesn't matter. There's no shame in using a dictionary, never a shame in that. And it doesn't matter, be it a print dictionary, or now it's way easier to use these online dictionaries that we have now. There's a few of them, of course, the best being, if you're going for the traditional dictionaries, you've got changlan.ie and you've got folklore.ie. That's a more modern one. So you've got lots of modern turns of phrase there, and there's tons of examples and example sentences. So it's a great, those two, both Changlan and folklore are great websites for that. So of course there are print versions as well of dictionaries that are easy to come by. So that I would recommend that. So whenever you're speaking or writing, if you don't have someone in your household to speak with, get someone online if possible and practice. If it's not speaking like on Zoom or something, you can write messages on like something like Facebook Messenger or something, and strike up a kind of a pen pal correspondence, and that's very handy. And just force yourself as much as you can. There is a lot of forcing there. That doesn't sound that pleasant, but again, there is, I suppose, that's no pain, no gain, as they say. It can't be like that. It's like when we're children. When we were children, we were often corrected on the mistakes we'd make when speaking, or we'd be told to say please and thank you and stuff like that. We just need to do that now in Irish in a more complex manner. That's pretty much it. And if you're a beginner or more of just an intermediate learner or something, of course that's going to be as drastic as if you're a more advanced learner. But at whatever level, I think those approaches, listening tons, reading tons, and really just trying your best when speaking, and trying to not be too self-conscious or anything, and not really caring about making mistakes, because through making mistakes we learn. Because you kind of have to make a mistake sometimes when speaking. Like, it's going to happen if you speak a lot, you're going to make mistakes. We do it all the time in whatever your native language is. So it's so I'd say to follow those, and no matter the level, and it should help.
Irish for Beginners, free 1-month Irish conversational course. Bitesize Taster, free membership to a taster of Bitesize course.